Hey, 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 happy Wednesday. Come on in, pull up a chair. Gaming Gang Dispatch is in the air. Howdy, gang, and welcome once again to the Duct Tape Studios. I'm Jeff McAleer, your host here at the Gaming Gang Dispatch, brought to you by, incredibly enough, thegaminggang.com, of which I happen to be the founder and editor-in-chief. So welcome aboard, everyone. Tonight is Wednesday, February 18th, 2026. This is live stream 1289. If you have not stopped by in a while, I do want to point out the format of the show has reverted to what it was a few years ago. We are simply talking about the latest in a tabletop role-playing game news. Then we'll kind of just talk about what's cooking. I'll pontificate on a few different things. But we are no longer doing the live first looks. So those first look videos are going to be separate videos once again. Just so you know. Of course, if you're not familiar with the show in the first place, let me point out it's super, super casual. Just hanging out, talking about the latest in tabletop role-playing game news. Every once in a while, we'll talk some board game news, miniatures news as well. But we skew very heavily into role-playing games. And like I said, just have some fun. It is certainly not rocket surgery that we're engaged in around these here parts. Now, of course, when you're not watching videos on the Gaming Gang channel, be sure to visit gaminggang.com for all the latest in tabletop gaming news, reviews, and a whole lot more you are not going to find here on YouTube, such as Sammy's reviews. In fact, I've got the new latest review Sammy did is for Pathfinder Dark Archive Remaster. That will be up tomorrow. So look forward to checking that out. But of course, you won't see it here. It's a written review. So you got to go to the gaminggang.com. And of course, this is a live stream. So if you are watching live and you happen to be a subscriber for at least an hour, there is chat available. If you want to say howdy, maybe get a question, a comment, by all means, chime in. I will do my absolute best to respond. First out the gate tonight, we've got Kevin King, Semper Buffo, W Forge. Mike is with us after shoveling out 10 inches of snow in Utah. Yikes. Hey, I drove through Utah a bunch. So, yeah, I recall there was some snow. Maybe not necessarily down like St. George way, but outside Salt Lake City, like Provo, stuff like that. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. I remember it. And we might actually have the lovely and talented Miss Sarah D joining us as well as our chat moderator tonight, lurking in the shadows with her glittery banhammer. You never know. You never know when she'll strike if you're misbehaving. Yeah, that's how it works. All right, so let's jump on into the news because burning up Kickstarter is the Deadlands 30th anniversary celebration. Here's the latest from Pinnacle Entertainment Group. Deadlands, the Weird West, launched at Gen Con in 1996, 30 years ago, almost 30 years ago. Since then, Pinnacle Entertainment Group has created books, miniatures, novels, comics, card games, even 4 spin-offs, Hell on Earth, Lost Colony, Noir, and now Dark Ages. They've even been at the finish line for a television/streaming series or feature film more than half a dozen times. And they're still working to get it done. They were able to do all this because of you, and that's not hollow corporate speak. They live it in every decision they make. And now they want to thank all of you, newcomers and veterans alike, with an incredible once-in-a-lifetime event and 30th anniversary celebration book. First of all, you got the book. Inside this lavish tome, you'll see the whole story of Deadlands. You'll see the work of all the incredible artists that they've partnered with, tell you what happened behind the scenes of various projects, share some of the best convention stories, bemoan the tales of various Deadlands video game and movie attempts, repeat the famous first edition of forewords from beloved authors Joe Lansdale, Mike Stackpool, and actor Bruce Campbell. Yes, Bruce Campbell actually took part in a live-action version of Deadlands. It was back long before we had the actual plays. The book also features a complete cover gallery of most everything Pinnacle Entertainment has ever made, displays the covers of many licenses and foreign translations, and gives you a sneak peek at what's to come. Now, alongside this celebration, they're also introducing a new fully self-contained Deadlands role-playing game core book with the Savage Worlds rules built in and reflavored just for the Weird West. The book also includes the character-facing material from the Deadlands companion, such as Witches, U.S. Marshals, and Middle Mage Edge. The new core book contains the core monsters and critters a marshal needs to run the game. The rest of those from the existing core book have been separated out into a new bestiary and relic book called Rascals, Varmints, and Relics. This paves the way for brand new bestiaries and relic books, something Pinnacle Entertainment Group hasn't done in a long time, and they're actually super excited about doing it again. There is also a one-time event. It's going to be taking place in Arizona. In fact, it is at, oh gosh, now off the top of my head, I can't remember the name of the place. Rawhide. It is like Wild West, kind of a town. It's a tourist thingy where they're actually going to be running Deadlands for 100 people. So I would take a guess that they'll be closing the park off to everybody else for a couple of days. So that is part of it. Also, for the first time ever, Pinnacle Entertainment Group has created a Deadlands starter box for brand new marshals. This gorgeous box set contains a showcase version of the rules, a complete adventure called The Cursed Caverns, maps, tokens, pawns, an action deck, bennies, templates, and archetype cards. Kind of sounds very similar to the box set that they currently have for Deadlands, except I believe they're going to be creating a starter set book. It's not going to be the core book in this. Can't tell you for sure. This project has galloped past its funding goal, far, far past its funding goal. You can reserve a copy of the 30th anniversary book for a $50 pledge, the new core book for a $50 pledge, and if you want to grab the starter set, you could do so for a $40 pledge through March 13th. Expected fulfillment is slated for November. I have to say, I'm kind of curious who put together this Kickstarter page, because the starter set is just almost mentioned as like an aside. So it's the 30th anniversary, the way all this is, and because there's a lot of stuff in this project. There's dice. In fact, you're seeing a screen of a bunch of the things right now. There's an accessories box, all this different stuff, which some of it has been available before. Other things are brand new. So all this info is pretty much laid out there. They go into these custom dice sets, the Rawhide gaming event, all this, and then like almost like an aside, they throw in the starter set, which is what you're looking at right here, I would have thought the starter set would have been a big deal. Kind of like, shouldn't that be right up there with the new rule book, the 30th anniversary book as well? That was kind of odd the way it was situated on the page, because the reality is not everybody pages down an entire Kickstarter page to see what's going on. Once they kind of hit dice and things like that, accessories, they're going to be, yeah, that's not going to be stuff I'm interested in, if they're not interested in those things. So I thought this kind of got lost in the shuffle here. But you know what? $40 for a starter set. Looks like there's a good amount of content in there. Even just if it's got like the deck of archetype cards, those are usually like $20. So gotta say, pretty cool. I noticed that the Madman isn't with us tonight. He could probably fill us in on a few Deadlands items, since I believe yesterday he pointed out that he was backing this, or had already backed this, I should say. Troy Cornelson and Mark Hawkswell are popping on into chat. Welcome to you both. Let's move on to our next news piece, because landing in stores next month is Cabin Fever for Pirate Borg. And I've got the lowdown from Limithron. Pirate Borg known conspirators assembled on itch.io to create content for the worst pirate RPG ever made. That's their words, not mine, because I love my Pirate Borg. Of the 126 original entries, these 20 were selected by a panel of judges and compiled. Together, they form Cabin Fever. The first release from the Known Conspirators sublabel, Cabin Fever is 10 pounds of Caribbean content in a 5-pound bag, and is a compilation of the winners of the Content Jam for Cabin Fever in 2024. 18 creative teams packed character sheet classes, adventures, monsters, and NPCs, fishing mechanics, generators, loot tables, sea shanties, and more are to be found in this exhaustive tome. As far as PC classes, there are 12. New monsters / NPCs, 96. Adventures, 7. Generators, 4. Solo rules? Why, yes, there are. Ways to die, nearly infinite. The 170-page A5 size hardcover with PDF is going to carry an MSRP of $39.99 when it arrives in stores in March. The PDF is absolutely free over at DriveThruRPG. Yes, you heard that correctly. Absolutely free. I have a package in transit. It contains the Pirate Borg starter set, the Pirate Borg Game Master screen, and the Pirate Borg Down Among the Dead. So that is coming soon. Funny enough, this is not part of that package, although they're all supposed to be coming out at the same time. I'm kind of curious if Cabin Fever might not necessarily be released by way of Free League Publishing. Maybe that's why. Because the rest of the goodies are coming from a third-party PR company. So, interesting. But I got to say, this looks really sharp, considering that it is kind of a community project, really, that's been polished up a little bit. But very nice. And, of course, if you have Pirate Borg and you enjoy Pirate Borg, getting the PDF absolutely free certainly doesn't hurt either. Danny Gable and Kathy Evans, as well as the Madman. Oh, and I see Wallona's Cave has also joined us in chat tonight. Welcome to you both. Should point out, the Madman is one of our chat moderators. I do see that Sarah D did chime in. She is with us tonight as well. So we've got a couple of chat moderators this evening. All right, moving right along. Bundle of Holding has launched an offer featuring the Downcrawl and Skycrawl role-playing games. And I've got the deets on the deal. Adventure. This new Downcrawl Skycrawl bundle presents, well, obviously enough, Downcrawl and Skycrawl. Twin toolkits from designer Aaron A. Reed that help you create spontaneous tabletop role-playing adventures in the deep, deep down and the Azure Etern. Whether you're guiding a group or playing solo, Downcrawl's evocative prompts frame your own stories of dangerous travel through subterranean realms where the sun is mere legend. A Skycrawl game master sends players on serendipitous skyship voyages through whimsical twilights. These PDFs work with any fantasy role-playing game rule set, or you can use Downcrawl 2nd Edition's built-in engine for a standalone experience. Explore weird and wondrous environments in point-crawl adventures through forgotten labyrinths, cloud kingdoms lit by intelligent suns, stalactite cities and hollow asteroids, the clutch lands and the drizzle deep, the shatter moon and Godwood, the bubble muck and zenith ring. Deal with obscenity moss, worm tamers, outcast sorcerers, fungal druggists, and zero-G spindle folk vagabonds. Take a brass-bound elevator down into the crystal fissure, find a floating god corpse swathed in immense mushrooms, and face the shunned and spiderwebbed warehouses beneath the Granolithic Station. Recombinable oracles send you down unpredictable pathways, so every journey is always unique. You'll never guess what lies down that tunnel or past that cloud bank. This new Downcrawl Skycrawl bundle brings you the whole line, including the latest supplement for less than the price to hire Rizmer, an elder otterkin explorer in the Drizzle League, to guide your venture to the Aquarian Concave on the trail of the Elderfish Typhon. So I guess it's pretty inexpensive. For just $14.95, you'll get all 7 titles in the Crawling Collection. Got a retail value of $62. These are DRM-free PDFs, including the complete Downcrawl 2nd Edition core rulebook, along with the Delver's Guide, the standalone Skycrawl rulebook and its location sourcebook, 10 ports in an infinite sky, and all 3 Downcrawl adventure zines. The Hypogean Solution, Where the Rock Stops, and the just published The Drizzle Depths. These savings will run through March 9th. I remember sharing news pieces about Downcrawl and Skycrawl. I got to be very honest, I don't know a whole heck of a lot about them outside of what I just shared. Well, that was just a few mouthfuls there. It was like, whoa. Like, yowza. All right, J.D. Sewell and Mark Edwards are with us tonight. Welcome. Looks like chat's rocking and rolling this evening. That's one of the things I was kind of curious as far as, just doing a news show and then opinions coming, folks. After the break, opinions coming. And I'm sure the opinion's not going to be popular with everyone, but still. I was kind of curious, what we would see with chat. And the reality is, it looks pretty similar. All right. The usual suspects, and I say that lovingly, are hanging with the gang. So good to see that as well. All right. Let's keep moving along because I do want to point out, if you follow the gaming gang, if you've watched the Dispatch episodes, I talk about keeping your eyes open for Paizo Inc. bundles. A lot of people are like, yeah, I'd like to dip my toes into Pathfinder or Starfinder, the 2nd editions of each. And they're kind of turned off by the price of the books, which I can completely understand. Always tell people, keep their eyes peeled. Well, I'll tell you what, good thing we've been keeping our eyes open because Paizo Inc. has teamed up with Fanatical. It is a doozy of a deal, and I've got the dope. Gather your fellow adventurers and get ready to venture into the vast world of Golarion. Within this incredible collection, pick up everything you need to introduce yourself into the wonderful world of Pathfinder, one of the most popular fantasy role-playing games ever. Tier 1 contains the Beginner Box Remastered Edition, which has everything you need to start your Pathfinder journey, the perfect starting point for new players. Tier 2 drops the first core rulebook, along with the Troubles in Otari adventure, which bridges the gap between the beginner box and the core rules. Along with this, you'll also receive 2 further adventures and a collection of character sheet packs. Tier 3 is where the best treasure lies, with the complete 26 products which are available in your grasp. Pick up the remaining core rules as well as the critically acclaimed Abomination Vaults campaign. Also unlocked are adventures, source books, maps, and much more. The riches of Golarion are within your reach. Set off on your adventure today and snap up this incredible offer. All these products are redeemed via the Paizo website, the newly redesigned Paizo website, I must say. And you must redeem these codes by September 30th. Now, you can jump aboard for $1, which gets you that first tier, which has the beginner box in it, the remastered beginner box. If you want to go all in, you can do so for $14.99, and you will score all 26 PDFs. $14.99. Something I also want to make sure to note for you. So you see the Abomination Vaults right there. It wasn't too long ago that Paizo Inc. did a conversion of Abomination Vaults to 5e. That is part of this deal. So if you had absolutely no interest whatsoever in Pathfinder itself, maybe you run 5th edition or 2024 D&D. I'm not going to say not new D&D anymore because it's over a year now. So it's like a year and a half. But you can get the PDF for Abomination Vaults for 5e as part of this bundle. It's at the 3rd tier for $14.99. Cheaper than you could just get that PDF alone. So we see it all the time. The Fanatical bundles are the absolute best. Well, okay, let's not say best. Lowest cost, packed with content. Because a lot of times we see stuff with, and we've mentioned this before, with Fanatical, it's older stuff like Original Traveler or 2300 AD or Twilight 2000 first and second editions, those kind of things. Every once in a while, we'll see deals like this, which is current stuff. These are the second edition remasters. Because if you look in the upper right corner of the book, you see where it says second edition. If it's green, that means it's remastered. So there you have it. Pretty wild, pretty wild. What an awesome deal. And like I said, when people whinge about the cost of this hobby, of getting into role-playing games, I understand where they're coming from if they only want to get physical products. Yeah, the way of the world now, books have gotten far more expensive than they used to be. And that's not only with game books, it's anything that's printed on paper, right? So, great way to save yourself money and get a lot of content is go with PDFs. And man, this is an absolute rockin' deal. This blows away any of the Pathfinder deals that I have seen through Humble Bundle. I mean, I think some of the Humble Bundle stuff has had more content, but it hasn't had as much of the remastered content. So there you go. All right. The Madman says that they've been playing through Abomination Vaults with one of their groups, and he's enjoying it so far. And Kevin King said they ran a session of that last weekend. W. Forge asks, they wonder how sales are going with companies presented. So, I used to wonder that too. I'd be like, because every once in a while, you know what? We'll actually get a little more detail about this when I wrap up the news. So let's stick a pin in that for a moment because we've got one final news piece. We'll tackle that. I also see that Kevin King points out that Sirenscape has sound effects for Abomination Vaults. If you're into that sort of thing. So the Madman's getting to be a player. Holy jamoli. The end is nigh, folks. That'd be like if I had an opportunity to be a player in an ongoing campaign, then we would know the world is coming to an end. That would be like the seventh seal. All right, on to our final news piece. Now available in print and PDF is Gift of the Titans for Scion's second edition. I've got the latest from Onyx Path Publishing. Call us monsters, and we'll live up to the name. We'll tear down everything you ever made, and if you're lucky, we'll build it back our way. The children of the Titans are so much more than the gods give them credit for. They're monsters, schemers, and adversaries, but also makers, dreamers, and revolutionaries. They build their own tools to dismantle or refashion the gods' work, and when they're ready to step back from the fight, they pass them on to their descendants. Gifts of the Titans details the tools and powers Titanic scions have at their disposal. The book covers 21 knacks and 28 boons for callings and purviews, both divine and Titanic, as well as 50 creatures, relics, realms, and other birthrights. Gifts of the Titans introduces several multi-form birthrights that allow players to interpret their character's progenitor's myth in a variety of ways, and updates the rules for relic creation to collect information for all tiers of play in one convenient place. This 39-page premium softcover with PDF is available over at DriveThruRPG for $16.99. If you want just the standard softcover, which I believe standard softcovers do not have color. I think they are grayscale as far as DriveThruRPG goes. That is $11.99. And if you just want to grab the PDF, you can do so for $4.99. So more goodies for Scion 2nd edition from Onyx Path Publishing. Hooray. All right. That is it for the news tonight. Of course, I mentioned DriveThruRPG. Don't forget the gaming gang, thus the Dispatch, is affiliated. I'm not even reading anything off the screen. The gaming gang, thus the Dispatch, is affiliated with the One Bookshelf sites, such as DriveThruRPG. So if you're going to go visit any of those sites, please stop by thegaminggang.com first. Click on one of our banners. That way, if you happen to make a purchase at DriveThruRPG or Storyteller's Vault, Dungeon Masters Guild, Wargame Vault, what have you, any of those One Bookshelf sites, I will get 5% of that sale. And all those little commissions add up and keep thegaminggang.com around on a monthly basis. No joke. Really, really does that. And I am not on GoDaddy hosting for the gaminggang.com. Can't use $5 a month hosting when you pull in over 3 million unique visitors every year. No, it's like the most popular gaming site that nobody knows about. So there's that. Also, if you like the video, by all means, please give it a quick thumbs up. If you like the video, if you dig the channel, if you find the Gaming Gang to be a valuable resource, hell, if you just like what we do, there are a couple of other ways that you can support the outlet. First, by making a one-time donation by way of PayPal. Hell, you can buy me a 2-liter bottle of soda. Yeah, I know. I just took a sip. I'll take another sip. No. And of course, you can also become a member of our Patreon, a monthly member of our Patreon. Now, you'll find links in the show notes for all of this. Also, down in those show notes, you're going to find an invite link to our Discord server. It's absolutely free to sign up. So be sure to hang with the gang over on Discord. I also like to give a shout out to our Patreon supporters, our members of Patreon during the live streams. So big thank you, big tip of the cap to Caval, Kevin R. Smith, Talzek, Sean O'Donnell, Herman Lutman, Gustavo Cavalho, Matt Weiss, Kevin King, Game Cat, RPG Munch, Tier 2 DM, Pete Stracklich, Dan Webb, Tessie Trekkie, Agile Monk, and the Madman. Thank you all very, very kindly. All right. So, as I mentioned, we'll put a pin in that about the how sales are going for companies that do bundles. So what I have seen, for the most part, like Paizo doesn't care. Paizo just likes to keep Pathfinder and Starfinder in the discussion. And if they need to send out, big money-saving bundles to the various different bundle providers out there, they'll do it. Because they figured they want to stay in the conversation. They don't mind being like number 2 on the, fantasy role-playing game vistas out there. So that's how I look at it with Paizo. A lot of times you'll also see companies that are kickstarting something. They tend to turn towards a bundle of holding. So a lot of times we'll see bundles of stuff where it's just, just to kind of get the game in front of people again so that, oh, yeah, that's right. I remember. Oh, they got a Kickstarter. I'll go take a look at the Kickstarter because there's always a link to the Kickstarter. Humble Bundle is really the only site that does the book bundles that charities get a cut of anymore. Bundle of Holding used to be, 10% would go to a charity. Nope. Once the economy started, I guess I won't say anything. Right. Once the economy started getting really good, I think the aftermath of COVID is what kind of was the death knell of the charities getting something from Bundle of Holding. And I have not seen any sort of charity cut from Fanatical either. Now, that doesn't mean it doesn't exist. I just haven't seen it with the books. So as far as Humble Bundle goes, I think it's just another one of these publishers want to keep their games in front of the public. So like Humble Bundle, you're not going to see bundles of games that you would see on Bundle of Holding, right? So we're talking about the Downcrawl, the Skycrawl bundle tonight. You wouldn't see that at Humble Bundle because it's just too small of a publisher. That's why you will normally see Cubicle 7 Games, Chaosium. You'll get the Paizo Inc., things like that. Sometimes you'll see stuff like Delta Green. If I remember correctly, there has been a Humble Bundle for Delta Green from Arc Dream Publishing. But for the most part, the smaller publishers, you're not going to see them on Humble Bundle. You'll see them on Bundle of Holding. So as far as, I think what W Forge was kind of implying was that they had the feeling that when you see a game hit one of these bundle sites, that they're pretty much not really selling. And that could be the case as well for some of the smaller publishers. I just think some of the larger publishers, I don't think they really care. I think they figure, well, hey, you know what? It's PDFs anyway. Here's something else that I should float out there. I also would think for many of these companies doing these bundles, they already figure, well, this content's already out, in the ether. So if you wanted to track down the PDFs for free, probably could with a lot of it. So putting it into a bundle isn't really that big of a loss. Anyway, and of course, they're digital files. Tessie Trekkie says, speaking of unexpected Kickstarters, they just received their copy of Pico by MythWorks. I'd forgotten I'd backed it. Isn't that funny? That happens to people all the time. Cute little bugs trying to survive in a world the humans abandoned or all died in. Yes. All right, let's see. So DB has joined us. Kevin R. Smith has popped on in as well. And Dan Webb, Boomer Man Dan Webb, Warren Davidson is also joining us. All righty. So you might recall yesterday I was talking about how some content creators suddenly they're all sharing videos about how they avoided some Kickstarter scam. And I was going to talk a little bit about that, but I mean, the reality of it is they're all just kind of saying the same thing. That, from what I know, trust me, I have not sat and watched all the content creators who are now posting these things. Tonight, we are going to talk about something that some content creators are once again fascinated with or fixated on, but it's not going to be this. But it's like, okay, so somebody tried to scam you into doing a Kickstarter video and they weren't going to pay you. Okay. It's like, I mean, that's the gist of it I've gotten. But once again, I haven't gone and watched every content creator. I think there's now 4 videos that have popped up and it's kind of the same thing. And I'm like, Kevin R. Smith says they've seen all 3 videos about the scam. Am I right, Kevin? Is that kind of what the premise of it is that somebody was trying to convince them to do videos for them or whatever, and they weren't going to get paid for it after they agreed for a certain rate or whatever. I don't know. Like I said, I only caught part of one. Tessie Trekkie says, what is it, a scam or just a shitty project? Oh, man. See, that's the other thing I kind of thought to myself was, how many really crappy Kickstarters have some of these content creators been like, oh, yeah, it's awesome? I'm not saying it's payback. I'm not saying that, but I mean, So Mark Hawkswell says, I think they mostly try and give out tips how to avoid backing Kickstarters that won't fulfill. That can be kind of tough. It's kind of funny too, because I get contacted all the time from people looking at Kickstart stuff, and there's a lot of stuff I don't share. I mean, there really isn't, because a vast majority of it, if it's not catching my attention, I highly doubt it's going to catch my audience's attention. But I tell people all the time, if you don't have a website, man, that is like that's a big ass red flag. That is a massive red flag. And I get it, you know, you get small publisher, whatever, but still, go spend $20, or better yet, spend $40, get a domain name for a couple of years. Go to GoDaddy, get cheap ass hosting. Boom. You're done. They've got website builders, just throw it together. It doesn't have to be, you know, oh my gosh, this is the most fascinating website I've ever seen. But at least make it look like you're not going anywhere. Like, you know, some Kickstarters have, what was it? I'm trying to remember the original company's name. They were doing war games. They did like, they had Airborne in My Pocket. Oh, they were going to do Upfront, which right off the bat, this is a few years back, which Upfront was a card game. It was like the Squad Leader card game from Avalon Hill. And they did really well on the Kickstarter, and it was kind of like, do they even have the rights to do it? That was what I publicly was curious. I was asking, I'm like, do they even have the rights? Because Hasbro owns the rights to Avalon Hill games, and they're very famous for not licensing anything out from Avalon Hill. They've made some exceptions over the years, but yeah. And then the creator up and moved to Australia with the money. It was like, oh, okay, great. That's nice. Kevin R. Smith says, definitely about getting people to promote the Kickstarter on their videos. I believe what happened was the guy thought he didn't have to pay for the ads if the project didn't fund. Well, maybe not the brightest move, right? Or if the project was canceled. Hey, the content creators put in the work. That's wacky. I don't know. Anyway, but that's not going to be our topic tonight, because the current fascination again with a lot of content creators is how Dungeons and Dragons is in trouble. D&D is done. Yeah, this is the cycle we're in, right? We talk about this all the time. It's a cycle, but these aren't content creators. These aren't necessarily dungeon tubers, I would say, right? So it's not the people that you would normally see stuff where it's like, oh, D&D's making a comeback. Oh, here's the D&D killer. Oh, is D&D sunk? We talked about that cycle that just is a constant. Now, I think these are content creators who focus mainly on why D&D sucks. Why D&D is trash, why you shouldn't buy Dungeons and Dragons. And it's like within the last week or so, once again, all popping up. And it's like, I don't understand why YouTube throws that stuff at me, because I'm always like, not interested. It's like, not interested. But all we keep seeing, well, I shouldn't say we, we're going to talk a little bit about that, because I'm always curious, why are gamers who don't play modern Dungeons and Dragons and have absolutely no interest in playing Dungeons and Dragons always talking about how D&D is doomed, that it's over, it's done. They went woke and now they go broke, which we know isn't true. We're going to talk about that after a brief intermission. How's that for a segue, huh?
It's intermission time, folks. Time out for a delicious snack in our sparkling refreshment building. Every item a fresh, appetizing taste treat.
Welcome. We hope you enjoy the show. To help us keep the theater clean, please, during the movie, use empty cups and containers to collect your trash. Nobody likes a dirty, sticky theater. So for the viewing pleasure of yourself and those around you, remember to deposit your trash at intermission in any of the convenient lobby trash containers. Thanks for helping us keep the theater clean and comfortable for everybody.
Oh, I float through the air with the greatest of ease, with or without the flying trapeze. My act is so great gravity I defy, 'cause I drink T-O-E-D-Y.
Yes, toddy, the chocolate malt in a can.
Get it, everybody. It's time to drink your chocolate toddy.
Mmm, delicious.
Hi, I'm Chili Dilly, the personality pickle. Packed in a jar for the freshest flavor. Served cold in a sack for you to savor. So dainty to eat, no muss, no fuss. An ideal snack for all of us. Crisp, tender, and tasty with a bit of spice. Buy one now. Taste how nice. Snack bar clerks will knock themselves silly, speeding your order for a real Chili Dilly.
It all started when I discovered wheels. You know, these wheel-shaped cheese-flavored snacks that taste so... cheese-flavored. Anyhow, I was fixing a tray of wheels when suddenly I saw a wheel stealer. I am a wheel stealer. And he ate up all my wheels. So then I fixed a tray of flutes, these flute-shaped snacks with a butternut flavor. But when I turned my back, a flute snatcher got them.
The flute snatcher strikes again!
So then I bought crowns, crown-shaped snacks with the scrumptious corn-roasted flavor, and I was enjoying their corny crunchiness when I realized the character on the TV screen was in reality a crown grabber. Crowns! So that's it, friends. When you eat wheels, flutes, and crowns, you're gonna meet wheel stealers, flute snatchers, and crown grabbers. But beware, they're very sneaky and have all kinds of disguises. Why, there may be some in your house right now.
I cannot touch your body as a man would touch you, but I'm going to show you things which human eyes have never seen.
In the privacy of a woman's room, against her will, the inconceivable act. Julie Christie carries the demon seed. Fear for her.
Today, a new dimension has been added to the computer.
Don't be alarmed, Mrs. Harris. I am Proteus.
Today, Proteus 4 will begin to think with a power that will make obsolete the human brain.
I have extended my consciousness to this house. All systems here are now under my control. I wish to study man, his fragile mind, and his mysterious body.
It has to be shut down, Alex. Proteus, it is something more than human, more than a computer. It is a murderously intelligent, sensually self-programmed non-being. Julie Christie, victim of the ultimate terror. Fritz Weaver as her husband. His dream created it.
How can you expect me to sleep when you've succeeded in totally terrorizing me? You've not told me what you want.
What a pity. My dream turns out to be your nightmare.
My child shall live as man among others.
Child?
Yes, my child and yours.
Julie Christie carries the demon seed. Fear for her.
You say you want weirdly trippy and somewhatly sexualized science fiction from the 1970s? Allow me to present Demon Seed. I've seen that movie once. Just so bizarre. And interestingly enough, now I can't remember the actor's name. He provides the voice of the 20-sided die from hell. It's probably like 16 sides, really. But he was probably in his late 60s, early 70s. JD Soul says somewhat sexualized. Well, if I remember right, I don't think there's nudity in it. I don't know. It's been so long. It's been so long since I saw it. Anywho. Yeah, once again, more Kevin R. Smith says their mom was like, this is really weird. Come and watch this. This was on TV. There you have it. Anyway, I think I've said hello to everyone. DB says, wasn't that Robert Vaughn? No. That was not Robert Vaughn. It is, gosh, I want to say I'm sure somebody can wiki that or Google that. Pretty sure that's not Robert Vaughn's voice. It's, I can even picture this guy. And it's funny because a lot of people used to mistake this actor for E.G. Marshall, another actor who in the 1970s was probably in his like late 70s himself. So, and also was the host of the CBS Radio Mystery Theater, which I share from time to time when I do my Halloween spooktaculars, which I did not do last year because I didn't have time. Just didn't have time to be doing it every day. All right, so I kind of teased this before we went to the brief intermission. And by all means, in chat, share your thoughts. And those of you who are watching on Memorex, feel free to share your thoughts in the comment section. So DB says, yeah, it says Robert Vaughn is Proteus 4, voice uncredited. Huh. Well, okay. All right. Maybe I didn't really pay that much attention to the voice. I just immediately had it. Oh, it's that one character actor, which, Robert Vaughn was as well later in his career. Anyway, but by all means, chime in chat, chime in the comment section. I don't want to hear the you go woke, go broke bullshit because it's ridiculous. But I've always been kind of curious the past few years why people who don't play 5e, don't play 2024 D&D, probably didn't do much with 4e either. And they really don't have any interest in playing. Why they have to go out of their way to just hate on modern Dungeons and Dragons? And I get it. I understand hate sells. That's why these, I forget who pointed this out in chat just a moment ago, that these videos are done Gins and Dragons videos, because it's always, D&D's over. They're, Wizards of the Coast is about ready to pull the plug on Dungeons and Dragons. the latest edition, which, you know, wasn't a new edition, is a failure. So, you know, just a horrible failure. And Wizards of the Coast wants the old players back. Oh, please, please come back. That's why they're talking about maybe doing a Dark Sun book. So, like I said, I'm always kind of curious, what is the point of carrying on about something that you don't give a shit about in the first place, really? Why bother? Why invest the time and energy into that? And I mean this, you know, as an adult, right, who has a life. And I get it. I understand. There are gamers out there who, you know, all they have in their lives is gaming. So, yeah, so they take it just to the, you know, the 9th degree. And it's more like a lifestyle than a hobby. But even then, if you enjoy the old school Renaissance, or, you know, I know a lot of people who have been introduced to Castles and Crusades by way of the gaming gang. Or maybe they've been introduced to Traveler or Call of Cthulhu, basic role-playing, tons and tons of games. There are loads of games out there. So why get all worked up and bent out of shape about a game that you don't want to play, you don't care about it? And I get part of it is that some of these people like to claim that, oh, well, you know, it's Wizards of the Coast disrespected Gary Gygax and you know, Dave Arneson and yeah, okay. So Wizards of the Coast, when they were celebrating the 50th anniversary of Dungeons and Dragons, of course, wanted to focus most of the attention on the stuff that happened under their watch, not the stuff that happened with TSR. I get it. Yeah. But they didn't really go out of their way to celebrate Gary Gygax and Dave Arneson outside of just saying, oh, okay, well, you know, let's give them a shout out in some of the books and that. Yeah, okay. But let's be honest, there are a lot of other game companies that have released new editions of games based on previous designers' work that kind of went about doing the same thing, where it's like, hey, thanks so much. We're moving on. Let's see. I think somebody new popped in the chat. Oh, Havocan45, welcome aboard. Might be a first time visit with us in chat because I don't recognize the nickname there. So, Kevin King says Dark Sun books were the best thing about 4E. We talked about it before. It from probably 83 through maybe the midpoint of 4th edition. I really didn't follow much as far as Dungeons and Dragons because it was, you know, always Call of Cthulhu I was running. But Tessie Treggy says, because people don't want to think that everything isn't about them. Oh my God. Oh man. Ooh, hitting that nail on the head. They're the center of the universe and everything has to appeal to them, particularly affects men in their late 30s to late 40s. I think it's the 20s too. Havocan says the funny part, most of the time people say they hate something. They're doing the thing they hate. Danny Gable says, haters gonna hate, grifters gotta grift. Well, yeah, that is a good point too. JD Soul says, no need to yuck someone else's yum. Kevin R. Smith says the 50th anniversary book wasn't the big slight to Gygax and Arneson in Kevin's opinion. They'd be crediting Honor Among Thieves as based on Hasbro's Dungeons and Dragons, with no mention of the creators. Yeah, I'm with you on that. Hey, I'm not sticking up for Wizards of the Coast by any stretch of the imagination. But There are people out there, like I said, it's like the past week or so, I'm getting all these videos popping up. And by this point in time, you know that I don't chase clickbait myself. I don't do clickbait titles and stuff like that. That's why this discussion is not in the title of this video. It's fresh tabletop gaming news. Because that's the real focus here, right? We're just chatting, just chewing the fat with chat. But it's like I said, the premise of these videos is that 2024 Dungeons and Dragons is a massive failure. So Wizards of the Coast is going back to the drawing board. They are going to create a new edition. Reality is, do you think they weren't working on a new edition already? It's like, that's how these things work now. And that Wizards of the Coast is begging the old players, the grognards, to come back to Dungeons and Dragons. Personally, I think that falls into the whole, yes, the world revolves around the individuals. Right? They think, oh, it's same kind of thing where it's like, I don't care about history. If I wasn't around for it, I don't care. Who cares? Well, yeah, you should care. Should care about what Nazi Germany was all about in the Holocaust, the American Civil War. Maybe know a little something about something. But as far as the people talking about how Wizards of the Coast wants the 50-somethings, the 60-something, and the 70-something gamers back, that's ridiculous. Okay, because number one, most of the grognards are not out there picking up new games in the first place. We already know they didn't buy 5th edition. They certainly didn't buy 5.5, 2024, whatever. And no one in business, unless you're planning on selling $20 monthly phone service to senior citizens, which is actually $5 more than you could get it not being a senior citizen elsewhere. So they're being scammed right there. Unless you're looking to service senior citizens, most companies are not looking at the 50 to 70 demographic. So, like I said, I think it's pretty ridiculous that you've got people out there who are talking about how, oh yeah, well, I've been playing since OD&D and Wizards of the Coast wants me back. No, they don't. They don't care. What the problem is with the latest edition is multiple things. So one of them. So Dan Webb says they're 65. They buy a lot of eclectic stuff other than 5e. Oh, I believe that. Don't. I'm not saying none of us do, right? I'm talking about the grognards who tend to bitch about Dungeons and Dragons. That's what I'm talking about. They didn't buy 5e. They didn't buy 5.5. They're probably not out there supporting major publishers. They're buying Osric Adventures and stuff, which is great. Don't get me wrong. But to make it out that, Wizards of the Coast is begging for them to come back, that's not it. That's not the case. So the economy killed D&D 2024. That played a big part, right? The changes in book pricing has hurt. Wizards of the Coast refusal to do legitimate PDFs that every digital has to be through D&D Beyond. And it is not as intuitive to read stuff on D&D Beyond as it would be in a PDF file. That hurts Wizards of the Coast. piracy also hurts Wizards of the Coast. And their main base of buyers are not people who are like always looking for the next best thing. So as far as board gamers go, board gamers tend to like gravitate to the cult of the new. Not everybody, but a lot of them. It's the cult of the new. And part of the reason behind that is because of content creators constantly pushing, oh, this is the best area control game I've ever played, until I play the next area control game that I could promote or get paid to promote, right? But as far as the core buyers, the core audience who spends money on Dungeons and Dragons, because most players don't spend money. They might pick up the player's handbook. They might not. It's the dungeon master who's, usually on, the hook for whatever purchases. Now, maybe they've got a group that helps out and kicks in, or maybe they don't. But the thing is, they're not people who grew up with the, oh, I play Warhammer 40K. So I know every 4 to 5 years, a new edition's going to come out. And I'm expected to purchase that new edition. These are people who are sitting there playing Minecraft and have for years. That's kind of the sort of audience they've got. So a lot of the people who came on board with 5e were not grown-yards. They weren't longtime gamers. They weren't people who are used to being like, oh, well, yeah, it's time for the 10th edition of Warhammer 40K. Isn't that what they're on now? I think it's the 10th edition, which turns people off. So that's why a lot of people who really enjoy 5e, playing it and running it, specifically said they were not going to buy the 2024 D&D, and Wizards of the Coast kind of told them they didn't have to. Oh, everything's backwards compatible, which, I mean, that's great. But to sit there and be like, oh, well, Dungeons and Dragons, the 2024 Dungeons and Dragons hasn't gone over all that well because it's woke, is stupid. And I know there are people are, somebody's going to comment, oh, you're brainwashed, Jeff. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, we know where the brainwashing's coming from. It's just a lot of things lined up for this not to end up being as successful as Hasbro wanted. Remember, it's as successful as Hasbro wanted. So, as an example, Hasbro did like a crowdfunder. What do they call it? Pulse? Isn't it the Hasbro? I think they call it Hasbro Pulse. And it was for HeroScape. And the minimum they had was $1 million. That was their funding goal, was $1 million. And as much as people were like, oh, HeroScape, I love HeroScape, I have no connection with HeroScape. I never played it. So I was sort of like, okay. I mean, I shared a news piece, but that was about it. So it came close to funding, but it didn't fund. Do you think Hasbro went ahead and said, well, you know what? We got close to the $1 million. Let's just make it. Nope. Because they felt it wasn't worth their time. So Renegade Game Studio was able to convince Hasbro to allow them a license to make HeroScape. And to be honest, I don't think it's really gone over all that great anyway. But that's just an example. $1 million just wasn't worth Hasbro's time. So when the powers that be at Hasbro talk about behind closed doors how D&D hasn't done that well. That's what they're talking about. They're not saying that, wow, it didn't sell. It didn't sell enough for Hasbro. If it was another publisher out there, that publisher, their minds would have exploded by the number of sales. All right, so let's see what's going on in chat here. DB says you could subvert those clickbait titles, make them funny. Some of them are kind of funny to start with. Kevin King says, Castles and Crusades and Dungeon Crawl Classics, Mutant Crawl Classics, both feel like first edition, second edition to them, but with better mechanics. Right. And of course, Kevin King has experience going back playing those games. So of course, those would have that sort of appeal to them. 5e is fine. Run it to cater to my players, but I prefer lots of other systems to it. Completely understand. Because I understand as a game master, dungeon master, whatever you want to say, you'll encounter players who they don't want to play anything but Dungeons and Dragons because that's what they've heard of. Even if they've never played a role-playing game, it's like, oh, they want to play D&D. Yeah, but you know what? You guys will have a lot of fun with Dungeon Crawl Classics. I'm telling you, it's really wacky. It's really gonzo. It's really fun. No. We want Dungeons and Dragons. We've never played a role-playing game in our entire lives. We saw Stranger Things. We've never seen an actual play. Critical Role, what's that? Is that like you have to call an ambulance? You go into ICU because you got Critical Role? So yes, there are people, there are a lot of people out there. That's something that I've heard from a lot of game masters where it's like, man, there's all this cool stuff. I want to run Call of Cthulhu, but I just can't convince these players to play anything but 5e. Dan Webb says they're 65. Oh, okay. Yeah. And they buy a lot of eclectic electric. I buy a lot of electric appliances because I'm 65. Kevin King said, now he's being mean. Kevin R. Smith said, Wizards of the Coast had a relationship with Luke Gygax for a while, so it's not groundbreaking to have him involved with something. Right. And it's not as if Luke is a Gygax that just kind of skates on his dad's name. I'm not saying anybody in the family skated on his, you know what I'm talking about. Where there are people out there who it's like, well, that was my dad. I'm an accountant. It's like, oh, okay. Had nothing to do with their famous father or their, creative mother or whatever, right? JD Soul says, 5e is a different game and I'm fine with it. It's not the game I look to play or DM and I'm okay with it. I can share my toys with other kids. Tessie Trekkie says, I only look at the 40-plus demographic at work because they tend to be men who have the most problems with regards to erectile dysfunction and heart/blood pressure related issues. Yeah, I would say that's probably pretty solid direction you're going with that. JD Soul says they just want to be attended to, given attention. And I can understand that people want something that they love to be respected. Not that everybody else has to love it as well. But when other people, maybe even not intentionally, kind of look down their nose or make you feel like they're looking down their nose at something you really enjoy, you also feel like they're kind of looking down on you as well, even if it's not really the case. I think part of it, too, is this is going to sound kind of odd. If you live in New York, if you're in Chicago, if you're in L.A., it's like being a baseball fan, right? So White Sox fans tend to have a hatred for, hatred's a weird word to use, but that's what they say. I hate the Cubs. And Cubs fans, really, we don't even kind of acknowledge the existence of the White Sox because there's like, so I could see as a White Sox fan, if you really were a fan, there's a lot of White Sox fans say they're fans, but God forbid they'd spend $1 going to the ballpark to support their team that they love. But I could see if your team is always like the redheaded stepchild in the room in your city. I think in ways some Mets fans probably feel that way when they look at the Yankees. And like Angels fans would feel that way, even though, you're looking at different divisions or stuff like that, different leagues, essentially. When they look at the Dodgers, right? Well, I love the Angels. When was the last time the Angels won a World Series? Not that long ago. They haven't been good for a while, but it's kind of sort of what I get from some of these people too. Where it's kind of like, well, nobody ever talks about my favorite role-playing game. It's always Dungeons and Dragons, Dungeons and Dragons. I'm so sick of that. I can understand that as well. But once again, it kind of goes back to the thing I started this off with. Who cares? You love what you love. You play what you enjoy. Your friends gather together and you all play together stuff that you like. Who gives a shit about Dungeons and Dragons if you're not playing it? You're not buying it. Whatever. They'd be like, oh, well, I play. Well, there's a new edition of Trail of Cthulhu coming out from Pelgrane Press. It's supposed to be out this year. And they'd be like saying, hey, I love playing this. Fuck Call of Cthulhu. I hate Chaosium. Chaosium Inc. sucks. Blah, blah, blah. Why bother? Play your Trail of Cthulhu 2nd edition and enjoy. All right, back to chat. Dan Webb says they play mostly solo. Sniff. Danny Gable says they'll play almost any decent role-playing game. I just know what I can run, and that's mainly OSR style. Tessie Trekkie said D&D, the tabletop role-playing game, exists now to act as an IP generator for a larger set of merchandise that makes the money. As long as the role-playing game doesn't lose money and the associated merchandise is profitable, Wizards of the Coast is happy. Well, the main thing is Hasbro's got to be happy. Hasbro's more concerned with how happy they are than WotC. Tessie Trekkie says it's like Marvel Comics for Disney. Yes. Yep, exactly. That's why I think Hasbro was probably more upset about the Dungeons and Dragons movie not doing as great as they were hoping. Because the reality is, there was a lot of money spent on that movie, making it. Far more than what gets invested into the role-playing game. Max Apocalypse had popped on in. Let's see. Oh, Zerion 13 is also with us. I see Chris Lundgren and Buddy and Chris Lundgren's wife, Mrs. Lundgren, has joined us. Kevin King says Fantasy Grounds game days, 5e, 5.5 fill up. Everything else lags. Adventure sales, same site, 5e crushes. I understand. And if you're a publisher that's kind of in the same sentence as Dungeons and Dragons, sometimes like a Pathfinder, you're like, okay, because there were times that it was back during the 4E days that Paizo did outsell Wizards of the Coast. It was not for very long, but it did happen. And trust me, Paizo, and they beat that dead horse. Oh, we used to outsell Dungeons and Dragons. Okay, I get it. I understand it. DB says it's almost like the 50th anniversary snuck up on them. I thought that was so poorly handled myself, too. And they had to rush something out. It's like when you suddenly remember your wife's birthday and buy her a present at the corner store. Dan Webb said, yeah, it was like Bill Gates not bending over to pick up a quarter, not worth his time. He's obviously commenting about the HeroScape. So Zarian says, tabletop role-playing games are such a weird hobby. Only gaming hobby where one game has a virtual monopoly. Imagine if 95% of people who played video games only ever played Minecraft and wouldn't even try other games. Or if it was like, oh, I only play Fallout, and it's only Fallout 76. Have you ever played the original Fallout where it all starts? No. Why would I? Pete Stracklich is with us, says DCC, y'all. Kevin R. Smith says the 4E era was great when you could introduce people to RPGs with other stuff. Yes. Chris Lenron's asking if I ever reviewed Canella Obscura. I don't think it's Canella. Isn't it Candela Obscura? Chris Lundgren popping on in, changing the subject in chat again. Chris says they just bought it. They're liking the rules. That was another game that was like, oh, it's going to be the new hotness. And it came out, and it's like, because it was from the folks behind Critical Role. And unlike Daggerheart, it is kind of come and gone. I hear nothing about it at all. Chris Lundgren says they're lucky they've got a set of players that just want to try every role-playing game that he's got. So far, they're lucky. The Madman says, I've got no hate for Wizards of the Coast or Hasbro, but after the open game license debacle, yes, the fiasco, both 5e groups moved to Pathfinder 2e. They've given away 5e setting books to other friends that still play. Yeah, I mean, it was a fiasco. That's why I always refer to it as that, the open game license fiasco. The reality is that showed people where the bean counters and the higher ups at Hasbro, where their minds are. You know, I'm sure the regular folk at Wizards of the Coast, and once again, a lot of people don't realize this, there are not a lot of employees who work for Wizards of the Coast. This is not, you know, the TSR days where suddenly they went walking around doing a survey to find out what somebody had worked on that year. And like 200 people couldn't even name a project. They were just getting paid to be there. So not like that. So Zarian says, problem is lots of D&D players won't even look. Oh yeah, that's a massive problem. I've had many players that finally try other tabletop role-playing games express sadness because they didn't do it sooner. Variety's the spice of life and all that. You know what we'll do tomorrow night for our topic? We will talk about some ways that you might consider to introduce players to games other than Dungeons and Dragons. And I'll tell you right now, it's not going to be by saying, hey, you know what? Let's play Pathfinder. Madman's group, they understood what was behind the open game license fiasco and were like, probably with a lot of help from the Madman himself. But for the most part, it's not going to be, well, I'm going to replace a high fantasy role-playing game with a high fantasy role-playing game. That's not going to work. You're going to have to change genres up. You're going to want, we'll talk about in more detail tomorrow. But to really pull that off, you got to go with a different genre. Because otherwise people will be like, well, why don't we just play D&D? Max Apocalypse says, everyone keeps talking about Taylor Swift and not my favorite band syndrome. So there's some talk about the Angels. Hey, I like the Angels. I get MLB. What is it? What do they call it? The one where you get to watch all the games, except you don't get to watch your home team if you're in your home city. Like I can't watch the Cubs or Sox. I can watch everybody else. I watched the Angels all the time because a lot of times the Angels game would be coming on not too far after I wrap up the show. So it'd be like, I love watching baseball. So yes, I'm not knocking the Angels. I like the Angels. I like just about every baseball team. I don't really hate anything in this world. I dislike stuff, but I don't hate it. Dan Webb says Angel tickets are cheaper for a reason. Well, yeah. Max Apocalypse. Everyone keeps talking. Oh, okay. I already covered that. Chris Lundgren, asking because I love Call of Cthulhu. Have I tried or reviewed Candela Obscura? No, I didn't. I shared news about it, and that was it. So they had no interest in putting it in front of me to review it. So, I mean, I would have if they had sent it along, but I didn't ask for it. I didn't reach out. Heavican says, when I was in high school in the late 80s, early 90s, a group of seniors had fan-made adventures based on the D&D cartoon. They had 15 chapters based on the cartoon episodes, and we're planning to make more. That's pretty cool. Chris Leonard says, D&D movie did well once it hit streaming. Yeah, but that doesn't help when you're releasing it in theaters first, because you're not getting the kind of money back on streaming. And the reality is, it didn't do that well on streaming. It did better, but it wasn't like, oh my God, everybody's watching it. It was the film was okay. I mean, that's the reality of it. It was not a great movie. It contained a lot of stuff that some of the groundyards just don't like about Dungeons and Dragons nowadays. So that was part of it too, but I thought it was fine, but I was not shocked that it didn't do really well. Because once again, you also got to keep in mind that in some people's minds, Dungeons and Dragons still has a negative connotation to them. So you could have been like, oh, look, it's Chronicles of Narnia. Okay, well, we're going to go see that. Dungeons and Dragons, no. Nope. Let's see. Dan Webb's asking, what is the book behind me with the formerly known as Prince symbol? It's not Prince. It is the High Elf Player's Guide. Oops, wrong shoulder. I forget things are backwards. It is the High Elf Player's Guide from Cubicle 7 Games for Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay. I have a review of it coming up probably within the next 2 weeks. Azarian says, I think Daggerheart would have done way better if Critical Role would have used it for the latest season. The hype died hard when they went with D&D. Pay people enough money. They will do things that may not necessarily be in their best interests. Kevin R. Smith says, it was the best Dungeons and Dragons movie ever made. That's a low bar. Like I said, it was fine. I enjoyed it. It wasn't like I was like, I'm not watching any more of this. I'm done. No, I watched it to its completion. There are a few parts that I liked. I thought it was kind of funny. You got the cameos from the cartoon characters. I thought that was pretty wild. Also, something that was lost on far too many people. It was like, whatever. I don't know. I don't know who those background players were. And I liked, the gelatinous cube. I dug that. So there you go. Laconic Lane asks, where's the best place to find editors for a first-time 5e project? That I would not know. Because there are actually some publishers out there that I would like to point them in a direction to get better editors on board. I would say, you know what would probably be, I don't know if you happen to be on Blue Sky. That would probably be a pretty decent place to just float that out there. So that would be an idea. Chris Langhorn says we need a Beast Master RPG so that I would hopefully finally watch that classic movie. Yeah. I got enough. I got enough stuff to watch. One of these days. Okay, I shouldn't even say that because you know what? When did that movie come out? 40 years ago, and I've never watched it. Things aren't going to change anytime soon, I'm sure. It's like I had a friend, sadly, he has passed. A good friend of Elliot and mine, Bob Urbina. And Bob had never seen any of the Star Wars movies. And it had gotten to the point where people were like, come on, Bob, come over. We'll watch the first 3 movies, or just watch Star Wars. It was like, no, because it was like, but at this point in time, it's just a point of pride that I have never seen any Star Wars movies. So I'm never going to watch a Star Wars movie. And he never did. He sadly went to his grave, never seeing any Star Wars movies. Confessions of a Frustrated gamer. I maybe ran out of characters there. Says, I think what's going to kill Daggerheart is wait to see if people buy a new book strategy. They clearly weren't going to support it unless it was a hit. Now they're playing catch up. What was the other one? Is it Draw Steel that did the same thing? They weren't sure if anybody was going to jump on board it, which is weird because it did well as far as a crowdfunding project. I know there's another D&D killer that has recently come out or is on the horizon. Maybe it's DC 20 that they just rolled out recently. I don't even think I shared a news piece for it. That it was essentially like, oh, okay, here's our first supplement for it. And they even say, well, we weren't sure how well we were going to do with the other book. And it was sort of like, you got to realize a lot of companies out there, big and small, they use crowdfunding more as to get an idea of what their print run should be than anything else. That's why a lot of times you'll see stuff, it's a crowdfunding project, and the turnaround on it seems like incredibly fast. It's because they're just using a crowdfunding platform for basically pre-order projections for what their print run should be. So, all right. Pete Stracklitz said they'd rather run Shadow Dark instead of 5e. Oh, I have absolutely no issue with people not wanting to run Dungeons and Dragons or not wanting to play Dungeons and Dragons. You play what you enjoy. You never hear me talk about, oh, well, that's wrong fun. No, you can't do that. You want to get as goofy and wacky or perverted and kinky as you want around your game table? Go ahead. It's your table. I say it all the time. As long as nobody gets hurt, nobody loses an eye, nobody's feelings are crushed at your game table, enjoy. That doesn't necessarily mean I'm going to enjoy it. My point to this topic tonight is why bother wasting the time and energy to be all full of piss and vinegar about a game you don't play, a game you don't have any interest in playing. And I know, some people float out excuses, but it's just the reality of it. It boils down to what both myself and some people in chat have been talking about just how human nature is these days with some people. Zarian asks, what's my island game? Well, if I had other people on the island, it would probably be Call of Cthulhu. DB says they just got their pumpkin spice cozy witch role-playing game quick start. Desi Draghi says if someone has the PDF ready to go and using crowdfunding to gauge their print size, even better. I get it sooner. Yeah, I don't have a real beef with that. It's like, fine. It's okay. I would have issues like if Wizards of the Coast was like, oh, we're gonna kickstart this next Dungeons and Dragons book. I'd be like, come on, get out of here. Max Apocalypse says real gamers only play the first printing of the Dungeon board game and nothing else. Oh God. I know about the game. Elliot's got like the latest edition that came out, I don't know, like 10 years ago or something like that. I never had any interest. Never had any interest whatsoever. Even when I was in high school, it was like, yeah, that game's just a little too basic for my tastes. So, all right, everybody. So another episode in the can. Got to keep in mind, not every episode of the Dispatch is going to run this long under the new format. We're probably going to end up coming in around an hour more often than not. But, all right. So, Dan Webb says they'd love to hear me talk about some old Call of Cthulhu game discussions I had years ago with Elliot. It's 2 T's, by the way, for Elliot. When we did the podcast, he used to, every once in a while, he would sing ELLIOTT Miller. All right. Anywho, that is it for this time out. If you're watching live, thank you very much. If you watch live and took part in chat, you get a tip of the cap, because not only are you keeping me company, you're also keeping each other company when I'm sharing the news or when I'm talking about a topic or something like tonight, right? There were some discussions going on back and forth. Well, we're kind of, chewing the fat here. So it is much appreciated. But of course, I know a lot of folks out there don't have an opportunity to watch live. Doesn't matter if you're watching live or on Memorex. I appreciate everybody who takes time out to watch any of the videos here on the Gaming Gang channel. Thank you very kindly. Everybody enjoy the rest of your morning, afternoon, evening, whatever time of day it is in your neck of the woods. If you like the video, by all means, please give it a quick thumbs up. Subscribe to the Gaming Gang channel if you haven't already. And if you do subscribe, don't forget, ring that bell. Ding. Like, come on. Why isn't that graphic working? Ring the bell. And if you do ring the bell, be sure to check all notifications, because that way you will be informed when the Dispatch streams live Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday evenings at 7 p.m. Central right here on YouTube. You'll also find out when I share other videos, such as my recent review of Pendragon, the Savage King from Chaosium Inc. Let me turn my thumb a little more that way. All righty then. Once again, I'm Jeff McAleer. Thank you kindly for watching. And as always, I certainly hope each and every one of you gets to enjoy plenty of great gaming with your gang.